Here to talk about homelessness in Christchurch. Welcome, Jono.
Kia ora koutou katoa. Thanks for having me this morning. My name is Jono Kidd. I'm a community development worker with Housing First Ōtautahi. For those that don't know, Housing First is a model that was established in the States 30 plus years ago to deal with our chronically homeless. Chronically homeless is defined as those experiencing homelessness for 12 months or more, or 2 or 3 episodes in the last 3 years. In the past 5 years, Housing First Ōtautahi has housed more than 250 of our most vulnerable community members. We currently have close to 200 who are still engaged in housing. Our model is based on Kaiwa choice. We refer to our people as Kaiwa, not clients. Kaiwa meaning those on their journey. We provide a full wraparound service, so it's not just hand the keys over, disappear. The model is used around the world, and in New Zealand there are probably 10 to 12 agencies that use the Housing First model. What I'm here today to talk to you about is something that we all agree on. I think we all agree that Ōtautahi should be safe for all our community members. I'd like to present a fact. The fact is that homelessness is increasing as more challenges come into our space, into housing, mental health services, AOD services. This is a situation, a challenge that we all must address together, not just a political response, but a community response. My role as a community development worker with Housing First Ōtautahi is around social, physical and psychological inclusion. This is about giving our people a place back in the city, a place where they feel they can participate and a sense of belonging. Due to the mandate that was imposed during COVID, I sensed an opportunity to re-engage, to get our people who by choice or through lack of knowledge were disengaged or had become disengaged from the library service. The library service plays an important part in the day-to-day lives. We engaged with the library outreach service and gap filler, and the site at the Commons on the corner of the Coolmore and Durham Street became available. We started by having the library outreach service come down, and in the last 18 months we have Orange Sky come down. They provide free laundry and shower services. We have the CDHB, they bring the Jabberwocky van down. Since March we've overseen 100 plus vaccinations, with the influenza, COVID, and also measles. We've engaged with CDHB Sexual Health. We've engaged with Hep C Clinic, who are about to start a harm reduction process, along with treating on the spot Hep C. We've also engaged with the Green Lab. We've had successful engagement with Statistics New Zealand, who reached out and had responses and engagement with some of our community members for the first time ever. It's important to note that the information received by Stats goes directly back to government, and then policies are based on this information. How can a council base any decision making on a community they have no statistics on? We have just recently finished an engagement with the Electoral Commission. We're having members of our community voting for the first time. I'd like to shout out to Rose and John from the Community Development Advisory Team, along with Gary, who have also been coming down once a week. The big thing with the Electoral Commission is some of those names I've mentioned actually assisted some of our people going across to Aldersgate to vote for the very first time. We also have engaged with Creative Junk and John Selwood from Telling Lives. One of the most important engagements that we currently have underway is with the White Room Creative, an arts collective based in Manchester Street that works with people with mental challenges and exclusion, isolation, etc. Our community is very creative, musically, artistically. I sensed upon an opportunity to involve White Room Creative And since then, this has led to a recent celebration of our Kaiawa's artwork, which was hosted down in the Life and Vacant Spaces Incubator last week. We had a successful commission for 8 days there, where 60 plus pieces of art were sold. But most importantly, it was getting our people visible back in the city in a positive way. This is a community that has a lot to offer our city. They are resourceful, they're creative, they just need these opportunities to show what they can bring. In the sense of safety, I understand the concerns with our business people, with other community members, but once again, what about the safety for our people? With the right support and the right amount of love, we've shown in that sort of 18 months and also the 8 days we were down Cashel Mall in a highly visible site, that our people can achieve and make a healthy contribution to our city. What was good, and like all good community developers, you're always looking at making yourself redundant, is by the third, fourth day, our people were starting to lead the conversation around their own artworks and the stories behind them. This follows on from a successful photo voice exhibition we did last year, which is still a valuable resource that travels around the city. With this, we empowered our people to tell their own story through photo and video. And once again, it's changing that narrative. It's including our people, and I can't say strongly enough, our people, into this conversation. What I would like from council, nothing more, but to consider this community in any long-term planning that you're doing in Otatahi. They're an important part of our city, and they have a lot to offer. That's me. Any questions?
Thank you. No, you've actually gone over time, but I'll let you go because it's a very important issue that we need to hear. So thank you very much, and very, very interesting. Thank you very much.
Cool.
Good on you.
Any questions?
Thank you. So next, I'd like to welcome Jennifer Dalziel, who is here to talk about the Dudley Creek character area and some of the high fencing that's being installed. Welcome.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for having me. I'll just go through this quite quickly. The first slide defines what a character area is, and they were previously known as SAMs, and they're areas in residential neighbourhoods that are distinctive and they're considered to have a character worthy of retention. The Christchurch area's got 15 character areas, and there's one in Littleton and one in Akaroa. There are rules associated. There are rules controlling what works that are visible from the street or within the front yard setback, and these are written in the 15 design guides. So the next slide is the Dudley Design Guide, and at the beginning it just once again it defines what a character area is and what is specific to the Dudley character area, that it's distinctive and appealing, it's attractive and memorable, and that's because of the combination of the character of the houses and their surroundings. And the purpose of having a character area is so these special qualities can be identified and retained and enhanced. And when people choose to make changes to develop their property, they'll consult the guide and see what they can do and what they can't do. Both before and after the Canterbury earthquakes, that people have been doing things in their front yards which weren't complementary to the area, and the ones that are specifically mentioned here are building garages in their front gardens and erecting high fences. The role of the design guide is to give direction so that people can know what they can and can't do, and it's firmly suggested that if people want further information they should ring the council. Also on this page is a map of the Dudley character area. It's basically both sides of Petrie Street, North Avon Road, both sides of Slater Street, and then along Shirley Road. And I'm specifically talking about the northern part, which is from Guild Street to Shirley Road, because that's where I live, and I'm more knowledgeable about that part than any other part. On the next page, we have a nice picture of, how do I do this thing? Oh, that way. Oh, yes, sorry, gone too far. of a bungalow with a nice fence, and underneath that picture on the right-hand side, under landscape and natural features, it gives some design principles. And the first one is to avoid fencing in the waterways, and if there are going to be fences along the street, they should be 1 metre or less. And then on the next page, we have an artist's impression of what the area looks like and what it should look like. And there's garaging and setbacks and landscape. And the one at the bottom is fencing. And it says low fencing to a maximum of 1 metre in height. And then just below that, once again, we have, it's written, street boundaries. The original houses in Dudley contain low or no fencing on the street boundary, and this openness remains today. Low or no fences allow good visual connection between the houses and streets. They contribute to a sense of neighbourliness, and they promote safety. The erection of high fencing along the street more recently restricts visual connection to houses, undermining the quality of the street environment. And underneath that, they've got the design principles of fences along the street. And the first one is that consistent boundary conditions are maintained and fence heights are consistently 1 metre or less. And that's all I want to say about the Dudley Design Guide. And I just want to move on now. There's 9 photos of 7 different properties in that northern part of the Dudley character area, where in the last 2 years people have erected big high fences. And hang on, we seem to have, yeah, there they all are. Oh no, there should be more, but anyway. Or maybe we go down. Anyway, there's 7 properties and 9 photos where people have put up big high fences. Either they don't know the rules or they don't know they're in a character area. And what seems to happen is someone buys a house, they move in and they whack up a high fence. There doesn't seem to be any information that real estate agents have access to or that lawyers have access to. We haven't been told in the Dudley character area for probably God knows how long that it is a character area. There needs to be a letterbox drop or something which reminds people what the rules are. And then the next photos are of these next ones are of new builds in the area. The first one is a development of 3 houses, and as you can see, there's they've been allowed by the council to put in high fences. And then the next one is a new build, and its plans were presumably passed by the council, and once more they've got a 2-metre fence along the street. And saving the best till last, this is 81 Slater Street, and it was the house fell down in the earthquake and was demolished, and the council purchased this property for the purposes of work on the Dudley Creek. And then once that work was, and they put up that high fence, presumably to protect expensive machinery. And once the work was over, they've now sold that section just recently, but the high fence is still there. So it just seems like the council has abandoned the rules around character areas, and like it's death by 1,000 cuts, you know. One high fence, another high fence, you know, a garage. Yep, so that's what I've come to say today. Either protect these character areas or get rid of them, really.
Okay, thank you very much for bringing that to our attention. I wasn't aware, to be honest. So that's good.
Is there any questions?
No, you've gone over time, which is cool. But thank you very much for letting us know. Thank you. Okay, now we've got some deputations from Canterbury Cricket Trust, from Lee Robinson and Jono Brent, who Jono's on Zoom, who will speak to us regarding item 5. Can you hear me all right, Jono?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, excellent. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Look, I in my haste, I've got an amended paper which I don't expect you to be able to read today, but I'd like to table it. If I could just give that to Council, please. Thank you for the opportunity, councillors. I approach you with trepidation because I know the situation you're in. And I said to my wife yesterday morning when I read the headlines on the paper, this is not a good time to be appearing before the council. We are in the position where we have two loans which were put in place solely for the lights for Hagley to enable Cricket World Cup to come to Christchurch. Those loans are $1 million to the council and $500,000 to Rata. We've managed to pay $250,000 off the Rata loan in the last few weeks, and confident with commercial sensitivity, we believe we have the balance of that loan covered through a specific approach to us recently. Our liability, therefore, continues in respect of the $1 million loan. You'll see from my paper that at the outset, when this was arranged during COVID, to ensure that we could commit to the lights for Women's Cricket World Cup, it was anticipated that Canterbury Cricket would raise a levy from its constituents to cover about half of that loan. That was not a flyer with its members. COVID, cost of living and other factors meant that it was simply not going to get the light of day, and it failed in terms of an endeavour by cricket to raise that money from its members. We are left in a position where we have $1 million owing to the council, and I would just like to record that the trustees of the trust are committed unequivocally to repaying that loan. We do now, however, have an issue with the interest. The interest alone is costing us something like with $54,000 a year for the council loan with interest rate hikes, and another $17,500 until we can retire the Rata loan. You'll see from the funding that Canterbury Cricket's budget forecast, that's going to cost community cricket. We're in a position where we can pay $15,000 a month off the principal. That would retire in 5 years, $540,000, and we believe that could continue to repay the balance of that loan in 3 years. We could continue to pay the balance of that loan over the 5-year period. The trustees of this trust are committed to being in place until the facility is debt-free. We don't want to hand the mantle over to anyone else until these loans are repaid. In our defence, I would say that, look, cricket does feel somewhat aggrieved, and I know this is contentious, but we exited Lancaster Park as equal sharing partners with rugby. We had from the 1st of October till the 31st of March, and rugby had from the 1st of April to the 30th of September. We shared the year, we shared the facility. They were provided for us. We exited Lancaster Park with a commitment under the Jade Stadium Agreement and the repealing of the Victory Park Board Act to two commitments. One was that we would be provided a cricket ground to international standard. We've had to pay for the pavilion and the lights. We were also given an undertaking that Jade Stadium assets would be insured to replacement value, and we know now they weren't and what that cost has meant. So we've ended up with assets that we've raised $20 million to meet and pay for, plus a loan of $1.5 million. Rugby's exited Lancaster Park with a $400 million grant. So the cricket community does have a gripe. In saying that, we are absolutely thankful to council staff for the standard of Hagley Oval and what is presented as a world-class cricket venue. We have one other issue that has come to the table in the last couple of weeks. You'll all be aware of the Mainzeal decision. We're directors, we are committed, and we have directors' responsibilities. If we look at our budget and continue to look at our budget and we are stretched with interest payments on this loan, we may not be in a position legally to sign the loan agreement. We're committed to repaying the capital, but if we can't see our way to get through interest payments and principal payments during a term, when we know what our budget is and we know what Canterbury Cricket's budget is, we may not legally be able to sign that agreement. I say that because that's our legal responsibilities. I also say and reiterate, we are going to repay the principal of this loan. So look, I'll leave you to consider this position. I know the council's in a critical position. We're all facing cost of living and interest rate hikes. I simply table it for consideration, and we are more than happy to continue to work with the council staff in what has been a very cooperative and rewarding relationship for now 20 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. We've got time for questions. Councillor Templeton.
Thanks so much for that, Lee. I'm just interested in the comment that you've just made around potentially not being able to sign the loan, and whether you talked to your membership about that when you were having the conversation around the levy, and the ability for you not to be able to meet your legal obligations should you not be able to fund it.
Well, number one, the main Zeal decision has only recently come out, and we believe it's, and we're taking advice on this, but we believe that it's imposed more onerous obligations on directors.
Yeah.
But I think the levy issue, and Jono might want to speak to that because that was a creative cricket issue, but they stumbled because of the reasons I've mentioned, cost of living, COVID, kids playing cricket, it's expensive, gear is expensive, and I think the resistance was pretty significant. Jono, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, thanks, Lee. Yeah, it was quite clear from our membership about the impact that would have, and I think it's probably to provide some supplementary data to that. Just in this last year, we've just had data come to us that we've had about a 12% drop in the number of junior teams playing cricket across Canterbury, and whilst we don't have the empirical research at the moment, the data points to the teams dropping off in areas of low socioeconomic areas, and so therefore what we're finding is that there's an impact on the current cost of cricket, is impacting a drop in about 28 junior teams this year. So the discussions that we had at the time about the impact on the levy have sort of in a way become true. So yes, it was a very difficult conversation at the time. I wasn't involved in the board, but the board have assured me that they canvassed it with their members, and it was sort of outrightly rejected as a path forward, just due to the fact of the impact on community cricket and the cost, particularly for juniors.
Okay, but so what you're asking is for us to spread that cost onto all ratepayers instead of just a small group?
Well, my response, Sarah, and I understand the council sentiment, but my response is that, like no other council throughout the country, major city, we've provided the infrastructure for an international cricket ground, which otherwise we would not have. We get nothing out of the lights. We pay about $100,000 in interest in power and insurance. We can't leverage off the lights. They're a facility there that has provided international cricket and visitor benefit to the city, and televised and publicity benefit. But we've provided $2.7 million in cash towards those lights.
Yeah.
We can't leverage off them.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, Councillor Johansson.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for the work that you've done. I just wanted to chat. I'm just trying to sort of understand, I guess, the relationship between the Cricket Trust and New Zealand Cricket, given that New Zealand Cricket would seem to benefit. And I'm just wondering why the New Zealand Cricket doesn't contribute, or maybe they will, but have you approached them? What has their response been? And, is there a concern that Hagley Oval's too small for one day international, the one day is basically, in terms of not being able to generate enough revenue and sponsorship to cover the costs?
So I've covered that in my amended paper, Councillor. So New Zealand, as I mentioned, New Zealand Cricket does not fund infrastructure. It funds operations. And if you go to Eden Park or the Basin Reserve or Lancaster Park, as it then was, those facilities are provided for New Zealand Cricket to provide the game. Okay, and so their funding does not include anything for facilities. So as a result, we've built these, we need to maintain them. If you go back to 1980, Cricket built the horticultural hall, had to sell it because it couldn't maintain it.
So I guess the other question that then raises is, are our fees to New Zealand Cricket for using the oval too low to cover the costs that we're putting in?
Well, I think my friend David Bailey would say that we spend a lot of time in in submitting to get these games, and our group of Christchurch NZ, the city, Canterbury Cricket, Venues Otatahi and the Trust meet over the year to ensure that we provide a very competitive a competitive budget to get these games. If we're too expensive, we won't get them. But look, we won't get funding from New Zealand Cricket, and in the end, as we've seen from Canterbury Cricket's budget, and Jono can confirm this, the community game will suffer because the funds are there to grow the grassroots of the game. And that's why we can't go to New Zealand Cricket for facilities.
Thank you. And that wraps up the time. Thank you very much, Lee.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we have no petition, so we'll actually move on to item 5, the Canterbury Cricket Trust loan. So John Fussell, please, Head of Community Sport and Partnerships.